Welcome to the Suwannee County Board of County Commissioner meeting for September 20th, 22. At this time, I'd like to get Commissioner Stapleton to do the invocation and the pledge if you all stand. Thank you.
Let us pray. Lord, we just come before you today to do the work of the county. We ask you to give us guidance as we make these decisions. Also, we ask you to look after our first responders and also our families and loved ones that are hurting in this time. I ask you to put your arms around them and help them heal. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just let everybody know, Commissioner Hale will be a few minutes late. He said he'd be here about 10 minutes after 5. He had something come up, so I was just inform all of you that he'll be a few late. We're going to go ahead and continue on until he gets here. We'll move on to approval of minutes. Item number 1 for regular board meeting September 6, 2022, and tentative budget hearing September 8, 2022. Is there any discussion, or do I have a motion to approve?
I'll offer a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Stapleton, second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda. Item number 8 is going to be taken off to bring back at a different time. We're going to pull item 9, 10, 12, and 14. Is there any others? So
9.
9, number 8 is coming back for at another time. Item number 9, 10, 12, and 14 pulled for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda items number 2 through 7, number 11, number 13, and number 15.
Motion by Commissioner Land.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stapleton. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Those will carry. Item number 9, approval of sole source agreement with Tank Wizards for complete setup of a 2,500-gallon fuel tank at Brantford Mine. Commissioner Land?
Yes, sir. I was just going to share with the board a little bit. I talked to Mr. Harris. He'd asked me to go down and take a look at the tank down there at the mine, and it was in use some time ago, and it's something that we need to get back up and going again. And not a lot of repairs there, but all that equipment that's on the purchase order there, that's definitely in need, and it needs to be cleaned and painted and whatnot. And I just wanted to point out to you guys that's some equipment that I'm kind of familiar with, and it's something that we need to do. The guys down there are currently using a portable and are shuttling fuel back and forth, and having fuel on site down there would really, one, decrease our liability of that trailer and fuel trailer going up and down the road, and 2, make us a little more efficient for the equipment that we got there. So I think it's a good idea and something we need to do.
And I can vouch for the company because they did my tank at my farm, and they did a real good job. I didn't have any problems with it, so I'm good with it as well.
Mr. Chairman, I'll tell you, we actually tried to get prices from 2 other companies, and they kept talking to us, but they never would give us all the numbers that we needed. And we've used this same company on several occasions and been very satisfied with them.
Yeah, I'll attest that Tank Wizards, that's kind of their niche. Farm tanks, commercial tanks, that's more of their niche versus stations and electronics and software. This kind of stuff's right up their alley. I'm comfortable with it.
I'll offer a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Commissioner Stapleton.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me.
If I could, because we're declaring it as a sole source and not just as one thing, and we have pulled it for discussion. Oh, I get to turn it back on. Okay. I would like to have this one done in two different motions. One, to declare them a sole source in the first part, and then secondly, to take your action on the agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
It's still a motion.
I'll offer a motion as a sole source.
Motion by Commissioner Stapleton.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
And I'll offer a motion of approval.
And then motion for approval by Commissioner Stapleton.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item number 10, approval of addendum to Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney PC Consulting. Mr. Mike Grissom, if you can just come up for a minute. Come up for a minute. For you people that's here that don't know Mike, he's our lobbyist in Tallahassee, and he's done a real good job for us.
I don't know technology.
I hope this is not a sign. But Mike's done a real good job for us. If y'all have seen a lot of the grants that the county's been awarded here in the last little bit, is due in part to what Mike does as well. So I just wanted Mike to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Chairman. It's been a pleasure working with you guys. Taking the leap of faith to hire your lobbyists for the first time is a hard thing. I think the $3.3 million we've brought back to the county in 6 months has been a great return on investment for what we've done. It's been great working with the staff. Jimmy's all right, but but I know there's still more to do. And I'm actually as I was leaning over to grab Jimmy to say we need to sit down and talk about next session and appropriations is when you called me up. So as long as you all, Commissioner, as long as you all approve me to come back, I'm looking forward to bringing home more money to the county. That means a lot to me, and it's been fun.
I think I undershot that 10-to-1 deal when we
2-to-1.
Was it 2-to-1? I thought it was 10-to-1.
I'm overperforming, Chairman. I'm overperforming, Chairman. It's all good. No, thank you guys. It's been a real pleasure working with you guys. It's been fun. It's been easy to work with, and obviously you guys are putting forward good projects because that's why they're getting approved. They don't approve bad projects.
We appreciate you doing it.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else want to say anything while he's here?
I just appreciate you.
Just keep it coming.
We'll try.
We'll keep paying if you keep bringing.
I continue to see it happen.
Thank you, Mike. Item number 12, approval.
Wait a minute, let's go back to item number 10.
I'm sorry, we got to approve his contract. Well,
We're approving,
do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, we're approving that at $3 million per 6 month going forward,
That
guaranteed.
sounds good to me.
Oh, you're giving me $3 million for 6 months?
No.
We're just upping the ante.
I'll offer a motion for approval of item number 10.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stapleton, second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 12, approval of cancellation of task orders with Newberry Engineers for construction engineering inspection service associated with Wideman Street and Carter Avenue in Brantford. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, my comments will actually be associated with both 12 and number 14, which is an award. But I don't want anyone to think that there's any issue with Newberry. They've been handling our CEI, and they've been doing a decent job for us. But when we started a conversation with DOT about this particular project, these two roads were bid together. When they came in, one of the projects was about a little over $8,600 higher than the budgeted amount. We've had a couple of conversations, had Zoom meetings with DOT, and I had some ideas on how to save some money, and they had different ideas, DOT did. So ultimately, we decided that the only way that one way that we could make sure that we stayed within budget would be for us to perform the CEI ourselves using our inspector. So we talked to DOT about that. They agreed to those terms if we were to cancel the agreement with Newberry. So I called them. They're not going to be surprised by this. I've already spoken to them. You can see they've got other jobs they're doing performing CEI on for us anyway. So I just wanted to share that with you. That will help us to keep the project closer to within budget as long as you recognize that we are actually performing the CEI.
Any questions? With that, do I have a motion to approve item number 12?
Mr. Chairman, I offer motion.
Motion by Commissioner Fleming, Second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 14.
Similar issue, same thing. The two roads were combined into a single bid, but the Carter project was the one that was a little over $8,600 higher than the funds that DOT was providing. I contacted the contractor. In fact, I'm going to point out, and I needed to do this, you have a copy of the bid tabulation sheet. The original one on the total of the two projects was $717,706.95. I negotiated with them, even though they were low bid. In fact, I'll just point out that the next bid was $1,324,828.62. They were considerably lower, but I convinced them that they needed to help us a little bit with this thing since it was over the budget, so they reduced it another $8,600. So the total now on that agreement is $709,106.95, and that's what we're asking for you to approve.
What was that number again, Mr. Harris?
$709,106.95.
Is there any discussion, or can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner Stapleton. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 16. At 5:05 or as soon thereafter, as a matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance pertaining to CPA 22-02, an application by Concept Development Incorporated and Concept Construction of North Florida Incorporated, authorized agent for Muriel Janine Taylor, to amend the future land use map plan of the comprehensive plan by changing the land use classification from Ag 1 less than or equal to one dwelling per 5 acres to rural activity center. Mr. Bravatt, do you want to do the swearing in?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. If anybody thinks that they may give testimony in any shape, form, or fashion, and since they have two items back to back, if you'd look at item 16 or item 17 at this particular point, if you think you'll testify under either one of those, would you stand to be sworn? Okay. Would each of you raise your right hand? Do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give before the board this evening will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you very much. As you approach the podium, would you please state your name and address clearly for the record? Thank you.
Mr. Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the first application, as you previously stated in the agenda item, is a small-scale future land use map amendment to amend the future land use map of Suwannee County by changing a described property from agricultural 1 to rural activity center. The property is situated at the intersection of State Road 51 and County Road 252. The site is described to be a 3.25 acre parcel that will be created off of two separate tax ID numbers. There's two described parcels, each with different ID numbers, and the description of this proposed project takes in a portion of each one of them, which, if the deed is recorded, would then become its own standalone property. The request is being made as part of a request to develop approximately a 12,480 square foot retail general store. The application went before our Planning and Zoning Board at the August agenda, and the application was recommended for approval to the Board of Commissioners. As we've discussed previously with any of your, on our next item, the process would be first to amend the future land use map, and then the next application or the next request would be the zoning atlas of the county. We've had some discussion regarding the vehicular trips associated with the request. Based on the general retail for this size square footage, it would anticipate a peak hour trips of 55 trips, which would not create a negative in the level of service that's already established for State Road 51 Now, as part of their request being accessed off of State Highway, they would do a formal traffic study when they're doing their driveway application and entrance permitting through DOT. But at this point in time, this would just be the request to change the future land use classification. It is a small-scale amendment that is handled at the local level. And so you have a proposed ordinance as part of your agenda packet. If the board so chooses to approve it, then they would need to adopt that ordinance. I don't have anything else further to ask. If you have any questions of me, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, I'll enter the file into the record.
Thank you, Mr.
Any questions?
Mr. Meeks. I'll take in the present file, complete file, as composite exhibit number 1.
You also have a representative from Concept that's here to maybe touch on anything I haven't touched on, or if there's any questions you want to direct to her. Her name is Holly White. She's present here as well.
Okay. Are there any questions of the staff or Ms. Holly?
Not this time.
Mr. Chairman, I don't, actually, it's just something that I need to know. Why is there going to be two different parcel numbers?
Well, no, right now, the current owner of the property owns 2 parcels of property that adjoin each other, and it's in 2 separate ID numbers.
Okay.
And then if they purchase this property, they will buy part of this one and part of this one, which will be a standalone property by itself.
Okay, that's good.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lane?
Mr. Meeks, so that I understood you correctly, you said they're going to buy part of each parcel, or are they going to buy the entirety of the triangular piece in the corner?
Maybe part of the triangular piece, but then as well of the other portion of property that is just located north. It's a strip of that. It would be, because that's a much larger parcel, but portion of that would be added to this to create a new standalone
So
parcel.
Mrs. Taylor would remain the owner of the triangular piece, part of the triangular piece?
I don't believe as part of the triangular portion. She is the owner of both pieces right now, so they would take ownership of both portions. She would own
The remaining part
the remaining
of the
part
northern.
of the northern portion.
Okay. I got you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Welcome. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Russ Paget, 14475 193rd Road. I live just around the corner from where they're talking about putting this. Personally, I don't think we need another Dollar General there. We got one 5 miles up the road and one 7 miles down the road in Mayo. That intersection of 51 and 252 is already a strange intersection. And now you're going to add an entrance on 51 and an entrance on 252, which you just take and screw things up even more. Everybody keeps saying that they'll do a traffic study at some other point in time, but yet we're going to go ahead and you're going to go ahead and approve this to do regardless of traffic patterns and stuff. From the plans I saw before, the entrance off of 51 is just going to be on the north side of where 193rd Road comes in, which people going in and out in every which way. I just think we're going to be having problems there because Dollar General wants to take and put another Dollar General in. And all I ask is that, we consider the traffic and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing there is none, I'll close public comment. Is there any discussion of the board, or do we have a motion to?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lamb?
I'll just make a comment. I appreciate Mr. Paget's concerns. I've spoken to him about this before. And I would tell the concept here, the other constituents of mine, that's my district. You know, they don't necessarily have a problem with the project. Their main concern is the traffic, and you can't control that. You know, once you develop it, the traffic's going to be what it's going to be. You know, hopefully it's on tight in the future. I know that DOT, I believe Mr. Harris is agreed to put lights at 250. They have told us verbally they're going to light that intersection at 250 and 51. That's supposed to happen. There may be a point in time in the future that we can get lights at this intersection if the traffic crashes warrant it. You know, so I would tell Concept that, you know, the majority of the folks that I spoke to are in favor of the project. They're not in favor of the increased traffic. You know, they live there. They live, Mr. Paget lives right around the corner. Other of them live right across the street or just down the road. But they do understand that at the end of the day, you know, zoning and the LDRs allow it. So, you know, not a good chance of stopping it. So I was just going to make that comment.
I understand.
For my community.
And we appreciate it. Anyone else?
And one thing, Mr. Chairman, I'd add to Commissioner Land is moving forward. Obviously, you know us, the board will rely if you need to put the pressure on DOT to do something with a light or anything. I'm sorry. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Got a light on.
Okay. What I was saying is, I know this board will support Commissioner Land if he needs to go back to DOT and have that conversation with him, that we do have an issue out here with traffic, you know, light or whatever else you deem that needs to be done out there. But we do look to you. It is your district. So.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of the people in my community, you know, I know Mr. Paget opposes it. The majority of them are indifferent. Their only concern is the traffic, but they're not in opposition to it enough to come up here and, you know, raise Cain, I guess, lack of better words.
You know, being that it is a state highway, our limitation, our scope is kind of limited into trip generation. So we can only look at like peak hour trips based on square footage, but not the accessibility part. That detailed traffic study comes with their permitting through DOT, which would be as, you know, proposed developments sometimes require, you know, turn lanes or decel lanes or XL lanes or something like that. And that's where that further review comes. And they are the entity that does that. That's kind of what I wanted to just speak on the differences, because we talk about a different traffic study, which would be required of DOT.
On that DOT traffic study, is that something that...
Excuse me, Mr. Paget, if you would, please, if you're going to say something, could you please come up to the microphone, please, sir?
I mean, Russ Paget, 14475. That DOT traffic study, is that something that the board will there be a meeting to let people know what that DOT traffic study is, or is that just something that will be done in, you know, hush-hush confinements? You know, I mean, lowering the speed limit through there, I mean, anything like that? I mean, will there be any public record of what that DOT study will be?
It's my understanding that, Mr. Pravat, if I'm wrong, correct me, that study would be between DOT and the developer and would have the contingencies of their permit application for those driveways at those existing locations. Is that?
I'd be happy to come up and
Sure.
Please. Welcome and name and address.
Mr. Chair, Board. Holly White. I'm with Vector Civil Engineering, a representative of Concept Development. So yes, as Mr. Meek said, we will complete a traffic study for permitting with DOT. We will also provide that to Mr. Meeks as part of our site plan permitting process with the county. So that'll all be a package deal that will be completed in a couple of weeks. We expect to follow the site plan, you know, in 2 to 4 weeks after this hearing, assuming we get the approval to move forward. So that will contain detailed traffic information, capture all of the trips that are out there now, and any improvements that come out of that, we will have to complete, to be in compliance with DOT standards. So the site plan that we've presented, it's very conceptual in nature. We're working through design criteria through geotech and access and that kind of thing. So the final plan will incorporate all of those findings, and yes, it will be submitted as part of our package, which will be public record.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just to remind the public, on these types of land use changes with the map and then with the appropriate zoning that comes, with it in the second phase, what we're talking about here is the particular piece of property, whether or not you think that the board thinks that it is an area for, the rural activity center. Now, the particular project, although we appreciate all the information and being able to, have all of that, it's not really judged on what the particular project is that goes on there. It's whether or not this particular piece of property should be zoned into that rural activity type center, and the location, whether it should be, done that. We have plenty of review processes that we still have to go through. They'll have to address with Mr. Meeks and then with DOT about the particular type of project that would then go there. And those things are also be, addressed a little bit later on down the road. And that, we don't have all of these all the time, so I just want to kind of remind everybody that it's not project driven, it's the property driven. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pravat. With that, do we have a motion to adopt?
I'll make one more statement, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lane?
I mean, I appreciate Mr. Padgett's concern, but, on the flip side of that, Mrs. Taylor and a lot of her family live there too. So we had a workshop yesterday that talked about land use and what folks can do with their property. So, I understand the traffic counts, but on the flip side, how do you tell the Taylor family, no, we're not going to let you, we're not doing that on your corner, your piece of property. You're not going to allow that to happen. So at the end of the day, honestly, I don't have a problem with the project. I live out there. I live 2 miles from that intersection. I drive through that intersection every single day, multiple times. It's going to affect my driving habits, my family's driving habits, but, Suwannee County's growing. It's a busy intersection. There's a convenience store across the corner from this that's already has similar zoning. I don't know exactly what that parcel is, but there's a Citgo station right across the street, which is owned by a family of Mrs. Taylor. So I would have to, at the end of the day, I'm not opposed to the project. It's growing pains of our county, and it's going to be new and different to some of the folks in our communities in all of our districts, but we're all experiencing it. Commissioner White, you had one just recently down on 27 and 137, very similar situation.
They're putting them over a corner.
Excuse me, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
I've not been to the recent meetings or that. I just want to know which corner are we talking about?
This would be the northeast.
Where the Taylor store is now?
Across the street.
Across the street.
Okay, that's
Yes,
what I
ma'am.
wanted to know.
Yes, ma'am.
I go through there as well.
Yes.
I'm just curious.
Yes, ma'am. Northeast quadrant.
Thank you.
So, with that being said, I'd support it.
Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Commissioner Land, second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 17, at 5:05 or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance pertaining to LDR 22-03, an application by Concept Development Incorporated and Concept Construction of North Florida Incorporated, authorized agent for Muriel Janine Taylor, to amend the official zoning atlas of the land development regulations by changing the zoning district from Ag 1 to Rural Activity Center. Mr. Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is the second step in the process. We first have just approved the land use category to a rural activity center. This would be changing the zoning atlas to the rural activity center. Same information on the property pertains. I don't have anything further to add, and at this time I would enter the file into the record.
Thank you.
And Mr. Meeks, again, I'll take the file in as Composite Exhibit 1.
Any questions of staff? Seeing none, open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any other board discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a quick question, if I could. Do I need to be sworn in?
If you're going
I
to,
promise to be nice. I'm just going to make a very brief comment.
okay.
I really have a question for Mr. Meeks. It's just a question about the process. These are considered small scale, so we can do these concurrently. You're doing the zoning along with the small scale at the same time. I just was going to point out that years ago you couldn't do it this way. You'd have to do a comp plan amendment, send it off to DCA, and wait for it. Sometimes it could take a year to get the comp plan changed in order to do then the zoning. It's pretty efficient now the way we're able to do this and save time by running both of them concurrently the way that we are, because it fits under the threshold for a small scale amendment. The only other thing I wanted to say was that on the transportation issue, the one on
I don't know if
137.
you're going to testify about that rather than making a comment.
I'm just going to refer to something that occurred at 137. On 137, when they were designing that, I had spoken to them about setting those driveways back farther from the intersection because it's safer. And we gave them the standard to use at the time, and it appears that that's what's been used here.
Any other comment?
No, sir.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hale. Second. Second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Is there any commissioner items at this time?
I have, you want me to do it now or wait and bring Jimmy up after the fact? Meeting
Wait.
that we all attended, okay?
Wait till the end.
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Any county attorney items, Mr. Pratt?
Yes, sir. Just briefly, with regard to our surplus properties that we've had out there, we've had a number of different properties that, we had the realtor go through the process, and we've had a number of different properties go through the bid process and be awarded, the bid, and then we end up the buyer being, backing out, doing other things. We've had problems with them wanting to do other title work and everything on the properties that are not part of what the bid process was. So what I would ask y'all to do tonight, maybe not, vote on it tonight, but to consider changing the terms under which we do the bids. What I'm handing out is just really just eliminating all and narrowing down the bid process so that it almost is as if you do it right at the same manner that you do on the courthouse steps. In other words, when you're bidding up there, you are making a final bid, and it is just that, a final bid. The property is being offered as is. There would be no other contingencies that would be offered by the board. There would be no warranties of title with regard to ingress, egress, acres, anything else you want to think about on the property. The property is up there. Any bidder on the property would have to make their own independent investigation and due diligence. And then when they would submit any bid that they would have, they would, along with it, put up the escrow money as part of the bid, that they would propose in their bid process. all of the bids would still be handled in the same fashion by our local realtor. And when those bid time comes, they're communicated over to the clerk's office to be held until they're opened publicly. Then they're opened publicly and brought to the board. If the unsuccessful bidder at the time, if they had put up an escrow amount or said they were putting one up, the unsuccessful bidders would then get their escrow money returned to them. Therefore, we would then move to the board to look at the bids themselves. The bid then, when the board considers all of the bids, there is a bid that is then awarded. And once that award is made, these documents that are filled out as part of the bid details, the bid supplemental procedures, and then the actual bid form itself, those 3 documents would then form the contract. Therefore, if the bidder did not go through with the process, I would have a nice avenue, clean avenue to be able to pursue, and everybody else would then have a clean understanding about how we're going about with this bidding. In fairness to some folks, it's been a little cloudy going back and forth, and I would just like to have it straightened out, cleaned up, and with those provisions as I've presented them to you.
So
I'm sorry to bring this one up in a hurry, and like I said, it's not something that has to be done tonight, but I did want to point out that we just needed to have some clarification on this. We've now got 3 additional surplus properties, 2 of which were bid on. Y'all awarded them, and now they didn't go through with them. But we've now got the 3rd piece of property that there is no title problem on it. There have been some problems with the mobile home stuff on it, but it's all cleared up now. So we are at a position that we can jump right into, moving some of these other properties.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner,
Mr. Fleming, go ahead.
go ahead, Mr. Fleming.
Matt, so
Yes, sir.
this is one that you cleaned up?
This is the one I've drafted.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
you drafted this one. I like what you got here.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Lamb.
are you good?
No objection. I like what we got.
No, I don't have a problem with it. So I just want to be clear. This would be, in other words, the realtor would use this form when they received a bid. So it's self-explanatory, pretty much.
Yes, sir.
What
The first page and the second page are the bid rules going through there.
This would allow
This is what
them-
it is, and the bidder has to put it on there. Then the 3rd page becomes the actual bid that they make, and when they make the actual bid, they'll put in there that, the escrow amount, the price of the property, the escrow amount of the property, whether or not they're going to pay cash or they're going to ask the county to finance it for them, which would be interesting. But
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I didn't know we could do that.
well, we're allowed to do that until the legislature tells something different. And then their preferences, on a closing agent, and then finally, whether they'll be able to close within 30, 45 days, but it would be designated. And then once they sign this is, and we accept it. That's the contract.
So that is the contract.
That's the contract.
So you don't have the big, long real estate contract.
That's right. Instead of having to go through those things that you and I bounced around on the other ones.
I get it.
Okay.
Well, I'm good. Does anybody have any questions on this? What do you want us to do, Mr. Vat, with this?
Well, if you are confident with what is there, I would like to go ahead and have you approve this particular format, and, we'll move forward with it. If glancing at it, do you think there's other questions or other items that need to be addressed in there? Certainly, it's not something that has to be done tonight, but I would, just ask you to consider it either now or later.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Land?
So, it looks pretty good to me. I just scanned it, and I'm glad Mr. Vat just said what he said. I was going to ask Mr. Vat and the board as well, if y'all would have a problem, just because we just got it. I've scanned most of it, but could we put this on consent at the next agenda item and that, the next regular scheduled board meeting, and that would give us a little bit of time to read it and maybe run some scenarios through our head?
That'll be great.
And if we got anything, we can pull it and talk about it. If not, then it just leave it on the consent and we're good.
That's good.
You good with that, Mr. Pravat?
Yes, sir, I'm fine, thank you. I just wanted to bring this to the board's attention, and something different needs to happen.
I just wanted to have a little more time to read it and just kind of run some scenarios through my head, but I don't foresee any problems.
I mean, it looks simple enough, Mr. Chairman.
It looks a whole lot.
You all want to read it and try to research it.
It's a whole lot more simple than what we've been dealing with, I promise you.
I like it.
Yes, it is.
I think it'll be fine.
Okay, we'll agree to put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Pravat. Moving on to general business number.
Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, you didn't ask me if I had something else I wanted to talk about.
You only get one item. Go ahead.
What
you got, Mr. Pravat?
Well, I just wanted to clarify that that I really don't have anything else to report.
I try to run an efficient meeting here.
Hey, you got a cake to buy tonight.
That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to where I can spend my money. Moving on to general business, item number 18, discuss with possible board action agreement with North Florida Professional Services Incorporated for construction plan reviews and building inspection services. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we've presented the rates to you that we got back from North Florida. Initially, they sent us that little schedule that you see at the top there for complete days worth of service, but I asked them to break that down in case there were individual inspections that needed to occur. They've got 24-hour notice required for those, and you've got rates for those and for a plans review. With the exception of commercial, that would require some discussion, depending on size, for plans reviews on those. So those are submitted for your consideration. Again, these are services that would be offered through the building official. If he couldn't get to an inspection and someone needed an inspection sooner than he could get there, he could offer this information to them, and they could decide to utilize North Florida for the inspections.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lynn.
I appreciate Mr. Harris gathering this information, and I know the folks from North Florida Professional Services are here in the audience, and by no means do I mean any disrespect toward them or their firm, but I'm in the same position as I was in on July the 5th at our regular meeting. I just don't think this is necessary right now. There's no real need. I've talked to our building official. He's 5 days out on inspections, and should he not be able to get to an inspection as early as a commercial developer or a residential contractor or anyone should need. I mean, Florida Statute 553-791 already allows those owners or contractors, I was about to call them customers, to go to the private sector and say, hey, North Florida, Suwannee County's 5 days out, I need it done tomorrow. And they could go do that for that customer, bill that customer or builder through the Florida statute. So, when I made the motion on July the 5th, my motion was Commissioner Lamb moved to approve advertising a request for qualifications from firms which provide construction plan reviews and inspection services to be used at the discretion of the building inspector or the customer at no expense to the county. And since then, I've done a lot more studying and found the statute there that allows that to happen today. So this is already in existence with that Florida statute. And I know there's hypothetical situations that we could sit here and talk about all night, but we beat that horse several months ago, and this board agreed to, it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm still there today. I mean, the way that this contract's written in our agenda packet is, paragraph 2 says the building inspections and plans permitting services are on an as-needed basis as directed by the county, hereinafter referred to as a project for the county. Doesn't say anything about the building official. It says consultant agrees to provide these services for the rate shown below to be billed monthly. to the county. So I don't want the county to get in the position that I'm going to use taxpayer dollars from everybody in this audience to go use a private sector, get stuck in the middle between the private sector and then the consumer. So then I got to collect it from the consumer to reimburse myself for the service that I ordered to go do because we couldn't do it quick enough. I mean, that was my stance on July the 5th, and I mean, I'm still there today. I just think that putting this in place today, it's unnecessary. Florida statute allows it to happen. Should something happen to our building official and we be without one, those guys have a brotherhood. And I know that a surrounding county would pick up the slack for us until we could put something like that in place, but that's not the case today. So, no, I'm still opposed to it. And that's just my 2 cents.
Can I make a comment, please?
I'm sorry. Mr. Harris.
Commissioner Land, I would agree with you if anyone was anticipating using taxpayers' funds to pay for those services, but that isn't what would happen under any circumstance. Because what would have to happen is it would have to be collected if it were being facilitated through the building department, because based on a recommendation by our building official, he would have to collect for that inspection before it ever occurs. Mm-hmm. There would be no occasion for any tax dollars to be used, and that's the way it's done today with building permits, and that's why you have a copy of those in here as well for comparison purposes, and that's all that was in there for. So I would never envision that anyone would be subsidizing building inspections under any circumstance. I will share this with you, and Mr. Hinkle may be aware of this, but we had a phone call. The building department's been very good about trying to get out and take care of some specific inspections for us based on some calls that I made to them and asked them to try to go ahead and speed some things up on a couple of specific ones, and they did that. And I'm grateful for that. We had another call, though, a building contractor. All I could share with him at the time was that we were working on this RFQ to get these rates back, and that at some time in the future those may become available based on the decision of the building official. But the contractor had called, needed a foundation inspection, and was told that it would be 2 weeks. Now, that may or may not be the case, but I can tell you on a foundation inspection, in the rains that we've had, you can't wait 2 weeks. When you put rebar in the ground and you can't afford to wait for your footings to wash in on you because of the rain. I wouldn't dispute that that individual should have called someone to see about having an inspection performed. I think what you would find, though, is a lot of people that walk in there, which may not be contractors, may not be aware that they even have that opportunity available. This was for the purpose of making the opportunity available if someone in a conversation with the building department decided that they need to hurry and have an inspection done sooner. The rates could be shared with them for that inspection. They could elect with the building official to either wait for him or pay the additional to have the inspection performed by another company. So that's really just additional information. At the end of the day, the board needs to do whatever you're going to do, but we advertised the RFQ and we got the rates and we brought them back to you, so it's up to the board to make a decision.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lane.
I don't disagree with everything that Mr. Harris just said. What I do disagree with is that I don't think the county does not need to inject themselves between the customer and the private sector that could do it quicker, no matter who the firm may be. We don't need to do that because Florida statute already gives those folks that opportunity to go to the private sector and say, hey, I need you to come do my inspection faster. Per Florida statute, they can hire a PE or an engineer or a licensed building official from any firm. They go do that inspection, they bring them back the certificate, and by Florida statute, our building official has to accept that inspection as completed, paid for by them. Why we want to get in the middle of, hey, we'll call them for you, but you're going to pay us, and then we'll send it to them. It's there already with Florida statute. Just leave it alone, and maybe we could do a better job notifying those uninformed that, hey, if 5 days isn't quick enough, here's a card of 3 folks. call them. Florida statute allows you to use them. If they can do it faster, bring us a sheet of paper where they signed off on it, and we'll check the boxes. It's done, and you can move forward. I don't see where we need to get involved in that process. I mean, it's already there. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's just my 2 cents. But this, I'm just one guy.
Yes, sir, if you want. Name and address, please.
Wayne Hanico, 11883 93rd Road, Live Oak. Are you talking about a special inspector?
We're talking about any.
No,
You're
it's
just talking
building,
about,
plan review,
Plan
it's
review,
clerical.
well, there's different codes within the building department code that allows special inspectors, but they usually have to be approved by the building official. And yes, you pay them directly. Now, I have honestly seen where building officials will collect the money and pass it on. I don't think that's a great idea. But I do understand when things get really cramped, it becomes very difficult for a contractor to continue doing what he's trying to get to an end date for his client. And if he loses 2 weeks waiting for an inspection, that's 2 weeks that client can't use that facility, whether it's commercial or residential or whatever. Honestly, I'm not really in favor of that type of inspection, but there are times when, if it gets where 5 days is kind of pushing it now. A couple days, okay, but 5 days really can hurt a contractor sitting there trying to get to the next spot. Yeah.
You're right, and I asked our building official about that, and his explanation was 95% of our contractors or our builders, whether they're owner builder or what, they call ahead and say, hey, I'll be ready for an inspection by next Tuesday. They're not ready for it today, so it's not like their project stops. They order it ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So kind of the burden's on them to make sure they get it all done before they go ahead and schedule it. So it's not like they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting on him to come.
No,
they just go ahead and kind of order.
Sometimes you can't plan that far ahead.
I understand.
I'll just give you a quick example of times where I've been involved with special inspectors in the field. I had a drywall inspection at a hospital. Everything at a hospital has to be done yesterday. The building department was so busy they couldn't keep up no matter what they were doing back in 2007. The special inspector came out. What normally would take a half hour was 4 hours. And when we got all done, I politely said, why so long? Well, I have a minimum I have to be here, and I have to be sure I make enough money for the company to make this work. I'm not saying that would happen here, but it does. I'm not in favor of it, but I also do understand that if it's advertised or if it's put somewhere in the building department where you can go do that and get an inspection, some contractors are willing to pay for it. Others are say, no, I'm not going to pay that extra money. It's a double-edged sword, and I just want you to hear that there's different parts to it.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Stapleton.
everybody's looking at their shoestrings again.
Well, I had a comment, but go ahead, Mr. Stapleton.
He's just pushing me.
Yeah, that's all he's doing.
I would make a motion to.
Well, before you do that, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I mean, obviously this is good information for anyone that's building something to have. So maybe not the specific information, but at least put in a packet that they pick up from our office, this is your options. If we can't get to it in a reasonable amount of time, here are your options. Here's what you can do, whether it's the statute or just a list of local guys that can meet their needs or whatever. I think us just being giving as much information. 5 days, like you said, is close for a construction site, but I don't think it's god awful, but I'm not in construction business either. So.
Well, statute, I think allows 30 days, what Mac told us last time, so 5 is pretty good when you consider
There you
giving
go.
30.
Yep.
But
30 for plan review.
back to Mr. Stapleton, Commissioner Stapleton.
Mr. Construction Man, talk to us. Talk to us.
Mr. Shoelace down
I
there.
wanted it yesterday when I called for one. That's, Mr. Perkins is the same way, and you just, most of the time, they work with you. They're doing the best they can. I feel like we need something in there. I'm not gonna get in an argument over this or that or whatever, but Commissioner Hale stated something in the packet. It could be in the original
Permit application.
yeah, it could be in the original application that gives you the opportunity or their names, or, they could have these folks' name on it. It could have a list. I'm in favor of that for people to understand, because they may not.
That's right.
Well, would these rates be available just like they are to us, to a private individual? So we didn't get no discount? Well, I just want to make sure that we wasn't getting some kind of special deal here, that if they called you if we didn't go through the county, if they just called y'all direct, it would be the same.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Perkins is up there. He's wanting to talk.
Commissioner-elect Perkins?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Perkins?
Maurice Perkins, I will file Fayette Avenue, Live Oak, Florida. Agree with Mr. Harris and Commissioner Land, true enough. But I think there's that the building department should be in there, because of the fact is that the building department, so first thing about it is that your inspection is to make sure you get a wholesome building for the people. That these contractors are doing the right thing. We have had some contractors go in there and do some things that wasn't wholesome, and then they do a good cosmetic job, and pretty soon that road start falling down, and people's lives is in danger. So I think with our local building officials should be involved in it to make sure that everything is being done on up and up. We should have outside inspectors come in, do some things, and this, it makes underhand. I'm not saying it's the case, but it could be possibility. So by having our building department involved with it, I think it's a great deal. That thing flow through that department to ensure that we're getting the proper things. I'm a building contractor, and I want to make sure that things are being done correctly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Stapleton?
and I agree with what Mr. Perkins, I don't disagree with that at all, but, honestly, if you include these folks' name in the paper that you put in the packet, you're accomplishing the same thing.
That's what I
You are, yeah.
Other than it's just going about it a little different way.
We're just going to call them direct instead of through us.
But like you said, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, like we're all saying, it gives that Mr. Customer, as you said, Mr. Customer, the option. He can use someone outside of, and bring that information back to our building inspector, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Name and address, please.
Dave Young, North Florida Professional Services.
I need an address too, I'm sorry.
4231 Northwest Little Road, Lake City, or I'm sorry, Lake City. Forgot what city I'm in. No, I'd like to set a few things straight. Number one, there is no time limit on the inspections. There's a time limit on plan reviews on residential. The code only says reasonable time, but doesn't define it.
Gotcha.
And the state refuses to define it. They leave it up to each jurisdiction to try to define it. Another issue that hasn't come up is if we don't go through y'all, a private provider, through the county or the city for the inspection, then we have to sign a contract with the owner, and we have to do all of the inspections, and we have to do all of the plan review for it. Then your building department has to discount the permit to take that amount out. The only thing they can leave in is the administrative charge. So if we don't go through the county, then like I said, they're having to sign a contract with us, which takes the county out of it, or city.
Right.
Run that by me one more time.
Okay. If we get contacted by an individual, a contractor or a homeowner, that wants the inspections, an inspection done by us, they have to sign a contract with us, and we do all of the inspections for that project.
Is that a requirement by law?
Yes.
Not a spot section, if you will, on one particular part of the project, but the whole project.
Yeah. If it's done through the local jurisdiction has us come out to do an inspection. We are actually working for that jurisdiction, and then that doesn't play in.
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm just not hearing you right, but we do the plan review, they come get a building permit, they start the construction process, we've already made an inspection or two, then we can't get to it and they call you. Is that where we're talking about? Then you have a contract at that point?
We have a contract with that customer then.
And then you would finish out?
We would finish out the inspections.
And then the county would have to credit back?
Would have to credit back for the inspections.
Whatever fee we charge for inspections.
Whatever would be left over from the inspection.
Well, that's the part I was confused about. Was it a thing from the beginning, or what happens if you hit middle ways here and you have to do it? I mean,
but like I said, by going through the county or the city for the inspection, they arrange for the inspection. Now they can charge the permit holder, and then pay us for that. But we're through the jurisdiction, and then that's it. We do the one inspection if that's all that they want done. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, just so I'm clear, the homeowner, whoever contractor would pay us for your services.
Yeah. Then we are actually working for the
county.
For the county.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question. Are you saying that is the position of your business or every inspection company?
That's the third-party inspection company business. Yes, sir.
I'm saying any business that they call in the state of Florida is going to say the same thing?
Yes, sir.
That is state law?
Yes, sir. It's in the state law that we would be responsible then. Because unlike a city or a county, we have to have liability insurance and carry quite a hefty liability insurance, whereas a city or a county doesn't have to on it. And that's why some third-party companies do have a minimum time. Just like a lot of jurisdictions, because I worked cities and counties before, have a minimum of overtime. In other words, you want a Saturday inspection, it's going to cost you 4 hours of time. That's what you're going to pay for, whether it takes him 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fleming.
But under this, you wouldn't have to pay that.
That's correct.
Okay. But then why is it going to cost $400 if it's 10 minutes?
Well, we still have to have our insurance.
Gotcha.
Regardless. But y'all are the, lack of a better word, recipient of the liability insurance.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lane.
I think what he's trying to say is that at the end of the day, I mean, they have a liability, which and engineers on staff, and overhead, and all the good things that go with it. And in my opinion, there again, we've had one complaint when we were 14 days out during the garbage decal process, and I can assure you that if it's a commercial developer, I would bet 50 to 75% of them are going to have these guys or someone similar on staff with them anyway, and they're going to do all the inspections anyway. the residential contractor is going to go through our building department. They're 5 days out, and it's, I guarantee you, cheaper. I'm not knocking your rates. I'm just, any private sector
Our rates are
firm,
what they are.
any private
It's-
sector firm is going to be more expensive
Yes.
than going through your local building official. That's just the way it is. Cost of doing business for the firm. I get it. So, like there again, for me, it's just kind of a moot point. If it's commercial and we're talking about apartment complexes or strip centers, they've already got engineers, and they're going to do the inspections anyway. And they're going to bring the forms down to our building officials and say, hey, we're the engineer, we've reviewed the plans, we've inspected the electrical, we've done this, we've done that. They're never going to deal with us anyway because they've designed the building. I don't see the need for the owner builder or the residential guy. Florida statute allows it. And I understand what he's saying. Well, we couldn't go do it for them unless they hire us to do some other stuff because we got some liability, so we kind of want to see what might have happened on the front end before we sign off on what's going on the back end. So
Yes, sir.
that ain't going to be your residential guy. That's going to be your commercial guy, in my opinion. So I don't think it's, the wheel ain't broke, don't fix it. This is where I'm at.
Any other discussions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, you got a hand coming up there.
Moses Clipper, 14581 102nd Path, Live Oak. I was hoping somebody would say it, and I'm probably stating the obvious, but when Mr. Hinkle came on, he and Mr. Taylor was doing it. Y'all know more all this than I do, but we all know we lost Mr. Taylor, and it's on Mr. Hinkle. Well, I understand y'all got a position open. I would think some of this 5 days out, and it sounds like some of this 5 days out is actually a planned 5 days. I know my last inspection, it was the next day. Actually, I never had an inspection that took more than 1 day, when Mr. Taylor was there and Mr. Hinkle finished up, and never more than 1 day. But please consider before y'all do whatever y'all can do that there is an open position. Once that fills up, there's going to be some relief there, and I love the way Mr. Hale said. I was first thinking about just having it posted, but that cluttered up. If that sheet was put in every packet, that's a solution, I think. But please realize that there's that other job posting's probably going to be filled. So
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. We went from 1.5, 2 to now just Mac.
Well, yeah.
And personally, I think that this county would be better served if we could find someone to fill that position, even in a lesser capacity.
Or dual role or
dual role, maybe helping Mr. Meek some, maybe learning. We got a code enforcement issue, maybe helping him some, maybe learning some with Matt, and kind of grow that person into a larger capacity that would be more loyal to us. You start them out at whatever the pay is and let them mirror these guys and learn, and then you got a multi-service. You don't have to start them. We don't have to go hire a building official because those are hard to find. We've heard and pay them whatever. We could hire someone at $15, $20 an hour and as an apprentice or something and let them start kind of learning multiple purposes and grow that employee, and over time have someone that's a little more vested and loyal to us and rooted in our community.
Well, I think that's what
we've been doing. We've been trying.
Yeah, and it's hard to find folks. I think maybe we need to reduce the criteria.
Well, that was kind of the thing that we were going to do with Robin when we hired him, but now the code enforcement's taking so much more.
Right.
That's right.
That he don't have time.
Here's the problem. We have been attempting to hire someone, and that's been our hope all along. In fact, I've sent some applications to Mr. Hinkle and asked him to take a look at them. I personally didn't think that they were what we were looking for, and I think he agreed. But having said that, we haven't gotten but a few applications. The difficulty here, though, is that we don't establish the criteria and the requirements. The state does. we had hoped that our code enforcement officer could participate and help give him some relief, but he doesn't qualify currently. It would be some time if he were able to work with Mr. Hinkle on some inspections. It would still be some time. The other option is that he takes some college courses to try to qualify. But in any event, clearly our hope is to hire someone, even if it takes longer, and we eventually get our code enforcement officer in a position where he's qualified to sit for the exam. But that's all set by the state, not us.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, what I'd say to that is I agree with him on that, but I would say we need to lower the hiring criteria from, I don't know exactly what we're advertising. Are we advertising for like a building official, state certified?
No, we've been trying to find someone that has any certifications. Here's the thing, there are lots of different certifications.
I understand electrical, plumbing.
So we've actually tried to attract someone with even some of the basic ones. If they've got some basic ones, it's easier for them to then get qualified where they can sit for the other exams.
Right.
But we just haven't been able to.
So somebody, I think if you explain to me, somebody with no experience pretty much has to have 4 years of college or whatever.
Either 4 years of college or demonstrate, I don't remember what the number of years is, 4 years or more in the field working in a trade in order to qualify to sit for the exam.
With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I mean, is there no one within the county already that, works on the electrical side of what we do, or works for Mark, that could be promotable up to that position? And with that background,
We've had it advertised for quite some time now. We haven't had any takers.
I gotcha.
I mean, this whole thing was intended, and even this, when it was brought up the first time, was to try to provide some assistance for Mr. Hinkle. And maybe it will help some if you put the information and rates in the packet with the building permit applications. People can make that decision on their own. Ultimately, our goal is to hire someone to work with him. So that's what we're still working on.
Mr. Ravad, is that legal for us to do, is to take that and put it in with the building permit packet?
If they want their rates publicized and out there to the public, I mean, that would be up to them.
Or at least,
I mean, you would put up there, I mean, a disclaimer, this is not who we recommend. I mean, there's another document I would stick with it, but yes, you can do that.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, but I would have to state that they would do the whole thing from start to finish. They wouldn't just do like per item.
Right.
So then you run into that issue.
well, just, like I say, make it a one-page thing clear that they have the option to seek that work or that inspection somewhere else.
Mr. Meeks.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Meeks.
I wish Mac was here. Maybe he could speak a little bit more clearly on this, but I believe the building department has a document that they have available in their office. Now, whether or not that's included in all of the permit packets or not, but it includes the requirements of a third-party inspector of what they have to provide and the reduced rates, because we have to remove those rates out of that building permit fee, and we've had that done before. So there's some documentation and everything that they have. You know, when someone is, usually we get that notification that someone's using a third-party inspector, we give them that form, and then that form comes back to us and it's approved, making sure that those individuals that are going to be responsible for that plan review or inspection are licensed, and you know that they meet all the criteria that would be required. But it's certainly something that could be amended and added to any of our building permit packets. You know, I don't have the job description in front of me, but I believe that, you know, part of the language was advertised for a licensed individual, a licensed inspector, and there wasn't the possibly the allowance that someone who qualified in the field could be approved a provisional to then be able to test for that. One thing Mac had mentioned the other day, and I don't know if he's, you know, made any of you aware, but you know, a lot of the inspections that's done through the building department is a high volume of electrical. So if we ever were to look at a specific field of fielding a specialized inspector of a certain field, you may look at trying to get a 1 and 2 family inspector, but also maybe include just someone who holds an electrical license or could get that provisional for electrical. Because there's so many, the way Suwannee Valley and Duke Energy works it now, if you have a disconnect on those services, if it's been disconnected for a certain period of time, they won't reconnect that power without an inspection. So some of those inspections are very easy inspections, but they're inspections nonetheless. And it may be one end of the county to the other. So it's time.
Well, like when you put a generator, I know when I put a generator in at my house, I had to disconnect the power. Well, I had to get an inspection.
Generators, solar, any of these pivot irrigations for ag services, any of that stuff would be covered under just an electrical inspector.
So hire electrical and then let them try to grow and pull plumbing and other.
We don't have the volume of plumbing and mechanical. I mean, that is part of it, but electrical is a high volume.
High demand.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of other things going on with electrical.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Maybe that's an avenue.
You need a motion?
I do.
I'd move that we leave things the way that they are and continue to try to hire an individual with.
You actually don't have to take any action on it.
I was thinking we just
We just leave it as is. Is that the consent of the board?
That's mine. Yes.
Well, I mean,
That's fine.
is that what y'all want to do?
Ron said that there is something in there about the third party, but do we want to put a more descriptive? Oh, is this, I'm sorry.
I don't know if we know how many third-party inspectors there are. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but we have certain lists that we create at the building department for providers that have requested to be on lists. You know, like you come into our office and say, do you have a list of some of the local licensed contractors? We have a list. If you need a list of local engineers, architects, we have a list for that. You know, so we could also generate a list that would include third-party inspectors to be able to provide those people that information as well.
Well, I think that would be
That's all
solve
I'd
the
ask.
issue right
Yeah,
there.
that's all I'd ask. Thank you.
I think Mr. Meeks has got a good handle on it.
I
Sounds like.
think so.
Man, I know those are dangerous.
I like his barber.
Y'all share it?
Well, item 18, we'll take no action. Item 19, discuss with possible board action, land development regulations. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this was actually a follow-up on your discussion yesterday evening in case you wanted to take any action at all. You talked about the possibility of a moratorium on issuing permits for recreational vehicles, not to be confused with the temporary use associated with construction, but rather the recreational use only. So now's your opportunity if you want to discuss that or do anything with that.
Well, we had a pretty informative workshop yesterday for y'all that wasn't here on the RV permits, and some of you were here, but it's quite a lot to go through, and the point of having the workshop was so everybody could kind of be on the same page with all the same information and try to avoid some unintended consequences by thinking through the whole issue. So with that being said, that's kind of where we're at on it, just taking some time to review what we have in place, what needs to be changed, and just kind of going through it. So I'll just let any of y'all want to speak, follow up on that.
Everybody looking at me now? No, I agree. I think that with what you said, I think that I'd be in favor of a moratorium. The days, 90 days, 180 days. I was kind of leaning more toward 90 on the, like what Mr. Harris said, not to be construed with the temporary use permits for construction or mobile home. So, but just for the recreational permits until we can get to the board can get their head wrapped around some parameters so that, like Mr. Chairman said, so we don't come up with some unintended consequences best we can. So I'd be in favor of doing a 90-day on the recreational. Is that enough time, Mr. Harris, or we need more?
Well, we can schedule another workshop, bring you whatever information, additional information you think that you want. outline some other ideas. I tried to make an outline last night, late last night, on some of the comments that were made yesterday. So I would venture that you'd have to have another, that was my pacemaker, I'm sorry. We would have to just schedule another workshop and maybe just to add to the agenda that we had. There was a lot of information there. You got it late. But I think if you look at the statute, we can invite the county attorney to offer some comments as well. And maybe just try to manage another workshop sometime soon. And, you know, it may take multiple workshops to get where you want to be before you consider actually taking any action. But 90 days is a good start.
Well, in listening to Mr. Crespo and Mr. Meeks and Mac yesterday, what they felt was mostly was enforcement issues, and Mr. Crespo asked, you know, to give him a little time to attack the enforcement issue, if you will, for a while and see where he got with that. So that's kind of where we're at with this moratorium and trying to figure out just what to do before we take any action on it. Mr. Fleming?
I'm glad you brought that out. I didn't say anything on yesterday, but kind of digested it last night and this morning and through the day, that the code enforcement officer said that let him do his job. I would be in favor of allowing him to do his job first, and that would give some time, and the 90-day moratorium, all that would come into play. So I would be in favor, even though I won't be on the board, but I'll say right now that I would be in favor of allowing him to do his job, what he's doing. Perhaps there's some people out there that can't, and I think everybody wants to do what's right. I have talked with him at the downtown office, and he seemed to have his head straight, and he know how to talk to people in order to get people to get them in compliance. So I wouldn't say that we drop the hammer on them. The moratorium would be great, but I would be in favor of allowing him to contact these people. I think the majority of the people are in South County that's having the complaint. Am I correct?
Oh, well, they're all over, but yeah, there's a bunch down there.
I haven't had one in District 2.
We try to keep them all down there in Commissioner White's district.
Yeah. I got one in.
I always said I'm the redheaded stepchild anyway. So.
In District 2, but he is in compliance and he does a great job. It's not junky, trashy. But when some of those pictures that I've got, I don't particularly like what I see. But it will allow them some time to clean up their act. So that's where I'm at with that.
Appreciate
I'm glad
that.
you brought that out.
Thank you. With that being said, is there any more discussion on this, or do y'all want to do a 90-day moratorium, or do you want to leave it as is?
I kind of agree with Mr. Fleming. I mean, the guy did state that yesterday, and I wouldn't want to, he feels confident he can get a grip on it.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to have a little bit cleaner language in some of that, so maybe another meeting we could add that for some discussion. I know we're kind of push for some time here, but.
Well, I'd like to just have another workshop on it, because we didn't really have enough time to get through it all. It's a whole lot more information than I ever thought it would be. And so I would suggest maybe doing the 90-day moratorium, coming back with another workshop before then, and then moving forward with that.
Get some feedback from Mr. Crespo during that 90 days to see what he's coming across, and any other issues we may need to talk about, and let him do his thing.
I just don't want to jump to anything that's creates more issues than we're trying to clean up by not thinking it through and doing the right thing. So that's. So with that being said, do you need a motion for this?
If you're going to do a moratorium, we need a motion.
I would move to place a moratorium, 90-day moratorium on recreational RV permits.
Motion, I'm sorry.
that correct, recreational?
Motion by Commissioner Land. Second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to additional agenda items. Okay.
Just for a matter of clarification, because I know that 90-day moratorium would start now.
Correct.
We do have some permits that are in process. What do we want to do with that?
When did you get them?
I don't know. I know they got building permit applications, so I can guarantee you we can go through some of them. I could probably figure out tomorrow how many we have pending and have a better idea of that, but I don't know.
Well, I would
how many
say
we got
anybody
sitting
that had applied already, you would continue on with them, but anything from today forward is a moratorium.
Okay, yep, just clarify.
Is that good with everybody else?
Just clarify, it's acceptance of due applications, not completing processing of already submitted applications.
Okay, yep, good to go.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Additional agenda items. Item number 1, discuss with possible board action architectural design service and rates for EOC Center. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm going to show you something. This is 4 versions of an agreement with an architectural firm that I've been working on for 3 weeks trying to get rates that are acceptable to the board. And quite frankly, I'm believing that we've got a decent number, but I think that it might be advantageous for us to just let Mr. Pravat and I sit down and put together a streamlined agreement that accomplishes what we need to accomplish. This is an AIA document. It's a standard engineer or architect's form that they use for their regular services. But revision 4 of this is the one I want to talk about a little bit this evening. Let me start by saying that we received a grant for $200,000 for design services associated with building a new emergency operations center. So we have a $200,000 grant, but when we went through the RFQ process and the companies were ranked, we ultimately came back to the board and said this particular company scored the highest, so we need to go negotiate rates with them and come back to you. Well, the initial rate that I received in version 1 was $325,000, and it did not include the civil work, didn't include any of the site work. There were lots of things missing that are a requirement in the grant agreement that we have for the design. The design agreement listed a lot of things that have to be performed and presented to the grant agency. So in addition to the $325,000 price tag that we were given, there was probably, I'm going to speculate, somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 more that would have to be spent for additional work, which would have brought us closer to $400,000 for the design. So I worked with the company. We've done a lot of negotiating, a lot of conversations, lots of versions of this thing, and late today, finally, I have one that's $200,000 that does include everything that needs to be included, with 2 exceptions. And those exceptions are the survey work and geotechnical work. The geotechnical work is something that I traditionally do when we're building a building. We have ground penetrating radar performed to try to identify any anomalies underground. If we find any anomalies, we can go in and drill, get more specific information, or in the alternative, we have relocated structures to avoid those anomalies. An example of that would be that large water tank out at the catalyst site. when we did ground penetrating radar out there, we decided we needed to move it so that we could avoid a problem. And that has served us well. In any event, this particular agreement says it's for $200,000. It lists the scope of work in here. You've got an Exhibit A in the rear, and it lists everything that's going to be all the expectations of the company and the expectations of the owner. What it doesn't include and what isn't included in the design grant is furnishings for the building, which no one had expected them to cover anyway. In any event, we've gotten to the right number, but I would ask the board to consider approving an agreement with the company pending a restructuring of an agreement to be handled by the county attorney and myself, so that we can narrow it down. And you can see this is just a whole lot of information that, in my opinion, doesn't need to be there. I would rather pull the scope out of the design grant that we received and insert it into an agreement and say this is what the company is going to perform, less surveying and geotechnical work. So if you have comments, I'm interested. This is the one, by the way, that we did not have control of this particular grant for quite some time, almost a year. It was sitting over at the EOC. A previous employee who worked at the EOC was going to handle this. That individual took another job someplace else. It sat over there. The sheriff came to me asking what the status was. I had no idea because it was over at the EOC. So he went over there and determined that it was sitting, I don't know if it was in a drawer somewhere. So they brought it to us and asked if we could handle it. And we immediately came to the board and got your approval to request an extension of time with the grant agency. And that was approved. But we need to go ahead and get this job wrapped up now while we're on this extension of time under agreement with the grant administrator. And I'm talking about the grant for the design work. As you may recall, I recently announced that we've received good news on our request for federal funding associated with the construction of this particular facility. But this is this particular grant is that we're talking. I mean, this agreement that we're talking about is only associated with the design work with this particular company. If that helps you.
Well, my question is, there's a whole lot of NP, which means not provided.
Correct.
And all these boxes
that
here.
NP that's not provided is not required in that design package either. So the important things are the design of the mechanical, the air conditioning, the plumbing, the structural. It has to have a minimum square footage, which is listed in here. I think it's 5,750 square feet, gross square feet. That's on page 2. So that is in here. If you look at page 6, it talks about the basic services being rendered. And I'll just go ahead and point out as well that this company is actually performing a lot of these for the other counties who received the design grants. So when they came back with 325 plus whatever it was going to take in my opinion, was going to take us to about 400,000, I said, why don't you just send us one of those that you've already done? Because the minimum is 5,750. And if we need to make some minor adjustments, let's do that and get this price down within the grant funding that I have. So we came to that agreement ultimately. And they had to add the civil work back in, all of the site work as well. The last thing today was the landscape design has to be included. That was called out in the design package that's in here.
Yeah, I see it.
So I went through all of those things that were required. And
so the only two things was the land survey and geotechnical.
That's correct.
And you want us to
Just authorize the county attorney and I to put an agreement together that says what it needs to say without all of this other
Crap.
information that's in there. Yeah.
Clean it up a little bit.
I've never been a big fan of these documents. This is the way it came. Again, this is the version 4. I mean, I've been through this thing so many times, it just takes a lot of time.
Mr. Chairman, the form that they're talking about is the B101 AIA document form. I have never allowed a client of mine to sign one of those documents because they are such pieces inappropriate. There's also a follow-up general conditions that goes along with them. That's 100 pages that has nothing to do with anything on all of that. Mr. Harris and I we've done this with the other companies, and we can get this, done rather than having to go through this.
It would be much simpler if we're allowed to just go ahead and put the agreement together. What I need for you to do is agree on the compensation and that we cover the scope of work that's required under the grant agreement. That's really all we need to do.
For the $200,000 that
For
we
the
got.
$200,000, that's correct. And I'm just pointing out for the record that we will be handling the survey work and the geotechnical.
And what do you estimate that to run? Just,
I don't know yet. But
I mean, we talking about just a regular survey?
well, there's a little bit more to it than that, probably, because you need to locate the buildings on the property, and there's some topo work. But if we were doing it, we'd still be responsible for the expense regardless. So it needs to be done. And a lot of people won't do the geotechnical. I think we need to do it. It served us well in the past. Like I said, I elected to do the geotechnical before we built that water tank at the catalyst site, and I'm glad we did, because it did show an anomaly, and we relocated that water tank from where it was previously planned to be constructed.
All righty. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Klepper.
Yeah, still Moses Klepper, 14581 102nd Path. Again, pointing out the obvious, probably y'all got all this on hard copies up there, but I was scanning through, and I know I was looking at their hourly rates, and usually when I go to hire somebody, I ask them what the shop rate is, and top to bottom. And actually, I'd love to have a sheet like this off everybody I hire. But I mean, the average salary there per year is about, well, I had it figured out. Well, the average hourly rate is $140 an hour. All right, now I know I had to pay $2,000 to get an engineer to put a stamp on a piece of paper so I could get y'all to say, okay, I can build a house. But still, the average $140. That top dog, he's making over $500,000 an hour. And the clerical, I bet Miss Mandy over there would love to draw $80 an hour and make $160,000. So anyway, just look hard on that one. And I don't know, I've never shopped for this kind of service, but I know when I go spend my money, I go shopping, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, on page 14, Article 11, it's 11.1, it actually lists lump sum, $200,000. That rate schedule was referenced in some of the 10 million words that are in this document, and it refers to additional services if requested. I don't envision us requesting any additional services, with one exception. If this company handles the design work at such time that we bid the construction of the building based on that design, I would request that they be available to participate in a pre-bid meeting to answer questions, if there are any, associated with the actual design. That's pretty typical. It's a common thing that we do with our engineers when we're bidding a project. We have them involved in the pre-bid discussions and responding to questions.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Do I have?
I got one quick comment on it.
All right.
It's a sad day in America when you get paid, or you get $200,000, and you just have to pass it on down the line. I mean, the government just giving money away. I mean, there's no, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. No one really has they know what you get, so they know what they're gonna get.
Yeah.
And it's 3 times what the average working man, you know.
Yeah, it states that
It's just
the budget.
It's just frustrating. I mean, it's just.
Well, they tell you got to have it, and then they tell you how much money they're going to give you to do it, and so everybody knows what everybody's doing, so.
But I mean, realistically, that's, $70,000 worth of work, but we got a grant for that, so that's what they get. But I mean, the problem is that's where we are in our country, and it's just disappointing.
I just wished I'd have paid attention in school.
You was paying attention to the wrong
I was going to say, he was paying attention to something.
I sure missed the mark on that one, I'll tell you. Anyhow, is that,
I don't have a problem.
do you need a motion for this?
I need a motion to authorize execution of an agreement with CRA for a lump sum of $200,000, an agreement that the county attorney and myself prepare.
Yeah, I'll make that motion that they have the opportunity to clean this up.
Motion by Commissioner Hale,
Second.
second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. I'm sorry. I heard you.
I'm frustrated, so I'm gonna do opposed to it.
You oppose, so 4-1,
4-1.
sorry. Thank you. I ain't never heard one of them so far since I've been here.
It's
just
sad, but
frustrates me. I
it's
don't-
like he said, I mean, what do you do? Is anyone going to do it any cheaper?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
well,
I'm going to tell you what's really disappointed. I'm going to make your day. I'm afraid that going forward, you're going to see more and more of this type of thing occurring. I don't, unless something changes in Washington, I don't see it getting any better. In fact, I've shared with you recently that more and more we're being told that we need to get engineering plans in place in order to apply for these grants. Right. One thing that was mentioned was putting it on in your capital improvement plan. So we did that. We created one of those. It isn't in the comp plan, but we created a capital improvement plan. But this infrastructure, we're hearing that, you're going to score higher, or they're going to require you to have your plans in place and have a project that they call shovel-ready, which means you've already got your plans, which means we have to pay for them because they're not being paid for in these grants. We have to pay for these designs. And we have to go through, Mr. Klepper made a great point. He'd be shopping around. Well, we like to shop around. This is one of those deals where the statute says that we will follow their procedure and we will entertain statements of qualifications, and then we have to rank them, and then we go back and negotiate. It's a pretty tough system.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Stapleton, and I appreciate his no vote. I know where he's coming from. I mean, the legislature gives you this money, and then they tell you all the hoops you're going to jump through, and the people you're going to jump through them with. You're going to do this with an engineer. You're going to do this with an architecture, and even there's a Florida statute that we've discussed before about engineering fees that protects you can't. Well, I don't remember the statute, but I don't. Mr. Ravat may know, but you can't negotiate their fees. I mean, it's just like. And everybody knows how much money you're getting, so everybody's like, hey.
It's by design. It is by design.
That's the disappointing part, because at the end of the day, if the world was all right, it would be that the government does try to help the counties out, and you get this amount of money, and we take that $200,000 and we work our tails off to try to figure out how to find a company for $50,000 and make them take it. But your hands are tied, and they won't let you do it.
That's right.
I mean, that's.
Yeah.
It ought to be put out on a per bid basis, just like anything else.
Exactly.
What we have to do.
And then if you wind up with 150, you shouldn't have to give it back. You should be able to keep it, because if another county took the 200 and just gave it to them, and your county worked hard to keep that money that you can use for something else. That's how the world should work, but it doesn't.
The legislature created this problem, and I promise you, lobbyists for
those firms,
these industries
that's right,
handed some checks out up there, some campaign contributions, and they said, we want you to create a scenario where counties and cities cannot bid architectural or engineering services. They have to go through this crazy scenario that no one in the private sector would ever entertain.
And these companies like this, they see this come across the desk and they just drool. Yep.
What'd they start out at, 300 and something?
They started out at $325,000, and that did not include all of the services that were required. So I started with $325,000, and I had to get all of the rest of the services pulled into this thing as well. So I got it down to $200,000, and now it includes all the services.
But they knew we had that money and
I
they thought you
pointed
wouldn't
out-
try to accomplish that.
I pointed out to Mr. Harris that if they had put in a bid or started their proposal at $326,000, then they would take it all the way out, and then we'd have to go back and start all over again with a competitively bid process for a new, for architects again. So they said, okay, this is the highest we're allowed to get under the negotiation process.
Gotcha.
We'll take that. So now it's down to 200.
It's funny how.
Which they knew what was on the table anyway.
Which they knew ahead of time.
And they would let us pay the $325 if we pay it.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me tell you what's really bad about this. We're talking about them sending me a plan that we'll make minor adjustments to that someone else already paid for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Exactly.
That's
I mean,
factual
they're just
too.
running copies.
Someone else has already paid for that plan.
Many times over, probably.
Yeah, and it'll come to, and it'll save us time, and that's okay, but it's just a bad situation.
I wonder how many counties just go for the 325 and pay the extra?
Oh, I'm convinced that probably most of them just signed right on.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to keep beating this horse. I got some kids to
Well, I got a
sponsor.
cake auction
I got
over
a
there we
cake
gotta get
auction
to.
that they're going to be disappointed if I don't show up.
And y'all still got to deal with Mr. Norris.
I got to get Norris up here for real quick.
We've got one more thing on additional
Okay.
agenda items, and then we'll get Mr. Norris. Item number 2, approval and acceptance.
Did we
of
get a motion there to approve
I
that?
made,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
we
did.
did.
I didn't hear
Yeah,
the
we
vote.
did. We just,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's 4-1.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
right, 4-1.
Lynn voted no.
Lynn's mad.
Commissioner Stapleton, I should say.
Okay, sorry about that.
Can I move on now?
Yes, sir.
Item number 2 under additional agenda items, approval and acceptance of assignment of city, county funds from opioid litigation from the city of Live Oak to Suwannee County, and authorized chairman to execute same, and authorized chairman and/or county attorney to execute on behalf of county any other documents required by the state of Florida to effect the appropriate assignment and transfer. Mr. Pravat.
Yes, sir. Well, we've been talking about the opioid settlement and the different ones over the period of time. The Live Oak was also participating in all of those settlements. And under the Florida plan that we're all part of, they would be receiving part of the money, we would be receiving part of the money to try to do these programs together. The city called and we went through some things, and they've determined that even with whatever funding they get, it's going to be burdensome on them, and they would prefer that, the county take the whole amount of the monies and whatever program it would be, that everybody would participate together. The monies are actually going to be started to be distributed within the next 2 weeks. And so what they're going to do is just assign their money to us. And the reason I brought it as an additional item is because it's going to be done within the next 2 weeks. So they have already met. They've already drafted an assignment that we've gone through. It's attached to the item here. They have resolved to assign it all to the county, and what we are doing is just signing the acceptance of that money so that we can forward it to the state.
Any discussion, or can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Clemens, second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Norris, step
Mr.
up.
Norris,
Run.
front and center.
And Mr. Shandon. I want to bring you up here just for a minute, too. And while they're coming up here, I'll just let everybody know, we had a meeting, was it last Friday? We went to, I think it was last Friday, over in Perry? Friday before. It all runs together. NFEDP meeting, and it was, Shannon was one of the guest speakers there, and I'll say he was, I've never seen that side of him before. He was a bulldog, I'll be honest with you. I just want to say I appreciate you getting up there and representing Suwannee County and the things that we're trying to get accomplished here and speaking. But I wanted to bring you up here and just tell you thank you publicly.
As well, and I think they're wanting to hire you, to do some more of those speeches, because it really was impressive. So what he did there. So I was.
We have a good team of folks that work for the interest of the community. I tell you guys, and sometimes you don't really understand the scope of it, and we worked with Shannon, we talked with Shannon, but when he got up there and did his thing and really broke it down and had his little slide thing on the computer and all, it was informative and it was impressive. So thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Very well.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
I think he deserves a round.
Yeah, you got to say something. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you saw the way he was dressed, he was going to the prom. He had his tux on. I mean, the shoes were shining. Wasn't he pretty?
He looked good.
Yeah, he looked good. He was the prettiest person in the room, I promise you.
Well, I don't know about that.
No, he was. He wasn't.
Look, and I mean this with all good intent. I'm just making fun, but there's a gentleman, Mr. Stu. I know all y'all know Mr. Stu. He was so impressed. So if you impressed Mr. Stu, you done something right. I can tell you that.
He called me last
Did, okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'm just passionate about things that affect us, things affect us in the county. And we had an opportunity, and we've been dealing with these things for a long time. So the right thing to do is to make your voice be heard. And it wasn't just me. I mean, we've got a whole team of working on things. I mean, I spent a lot of time. I had Mr. Pravat helping me. I mean, this wasn't just me. It was just me getting an opportunity to stand up there and say what a whole bunch of other things had come together.
It was a great presentation, though. It was really good.
And Suwannee County was represented so well there. Me and Commissioner White was there, and these folks, and Suwannee Valley was there. We had someone get up and speak. Yep, all the co-ops were there, and it's just an impressive time. Things are happening for Suwannee County. I mean, people are recognizing that. Other counties are recognizing that, and the state is recognizing that, and hopefully our community is, that we're trying to do something good here. So just, again, thanks to everyone that was involved. So, yep. And I think Jimmy got a promotion at that meeting as well. I believe he is now the chairman of the NFEDP board.
Looks like his wife punched him for taking it.
Yeah, probably. Like he needed one more thing to do, but yes.
Yeah. Well, it pays well.
That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely. But thank you guys, and especially for me too, Shannon. The local technology planning team, which Mr. Land, chairs, that group's been working hard. Shannon's been doing a lot of that grunt work. But it was so important, and then when he went actually over to the meeting, the rules and regs meeting, a lot of people were surprised at our NFEDP group. They weren't even aware the meetings took place. So all of that was brought to light there. That has manifested itself until when we had the summit coming up in December. I know some of you guys have signed up to go to that. There's going to be a whole discussion and a panel on this exact issue, and the co-ops are going to be there. And so it's through the work of the committee, and especially what Shannon's doing, and as well as other people in the county. Sure. I mean, it's a team effort, but they hear us and they see us. And so, yeah, there were a lot of good things there. He did a wonderful job. And on our speed test, I looked this morning, we're still the highest in the state by over a point now. We're over 15%, so I don't think anybody's going to catch us. So
that's right.
We're way out front, and I know the co-ops are really proud. I mean, we heard terms of, gig region, not just gig city or gig county, but gig region now, since there's going to be a total of like 4 co-ops right now kind of tying in on this process. So it's really exciting, and thank you guys for supporting it and supporting all that. It takes time and effort out of the day and everything that all these guys do.
But it's gonna make a difference as companies come in, as well as in our own personal lives and what we do.
What was the gentleman that spoke there, Jimmy, the guest speaker? What was the gentleman that got up and spoke, had the presentation from Tallahassee?
From the co-op?
No,
Oh, Dr. Jerry Parrish.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I couldn't recall his name. That guy's full of information as well.
Yes, he was the chief economist for the Chamber Foundation. He works for FSU, and he's also a part of NFEDP now. He is signed to be a part of our team.
Okay.
So he's forecasting. I don't want to share what the forecast is, but, you know, don't spend a lot of money over the next few months. You might want to put some in the shoebox.
Well, that's his business, but he also said that the state of Florida is above the curve.
Yes.
And above the national curve. If a dip was to happen or whatever, he does feel like we could sustain things a lot better, so.
Yeah. No, it was good stuff, and as you mentioned, you know, with that board, we'll be involved a lot over the next, it's going to wind up being 3 years, I guess. Good stuff. So I appreciate you guys for attending, and appreciate all Shannon did. So
yes, thank you.
Thank you for inviting us, and I was glad to go.
Yep.
I always learn a lot when I go off with you, Jimmy.
Some things you might not wish you learned.
Commissioner Stapleton, would you like to? We can talk about rural county days last year.
Y'all probably shouldn't let us go.
It came up in that meeting.
All I can confirm is what Mr. Chairman's saying.
Yeah, good talk.
It's always informative. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, honestly.
Let's see, is that everything? We're done? Good. Public concerns and comments. Anybody wishing to speak? Seeing none? Oh.
I just want to say thank you to everyone. I really have been enjoying myself here, sitting out here and learning, and thank you for all the doors that have been opened at
There you go.
Well, I guess it's telling me not to stay long.
Replace it tomorrow.
Okay. I've enjoyed everything, you know, and I do appreciate the board. And Mr. Chairman, I've enjoyed watching you orchestrate this board and doing an awesome job. And I'm thanking Mr. Stapleton last time when you were being the former chairman, and enjoyed watching you all and all the commissioners. But I want to say thank you to everyone that I've, you know, going out on this campaign trail and meeting with a lot of people, sitting there and talking with them, hearing their concerns, and I've been hyped up from that. And you know, even going to the Patriots meeting and talking with them, and going to the city, the Voters League, have my opportunity to speak with them, and several other things too. And it's really been a joy, you know, to do those things and to be able to meet with the people of Suwannee County. You know, driving those back roads way back and where, no God knows where. I met up with a lot of bulldogs and back there. But I know it was by the grace of God, because I don't do nobody's dog. I got my own dog, don't do nobody else's dog. I'm kind of like Commissioner Fleming. I say this, his wife used to be on be over the bus garage. She had to go out way out somewhere, and we took him with her. He was a big fella, took him with me to ride with her. And she blew the horn and went out there and got in front of the car, and about a whole pack of bulldogs come out there at her. And her husband locked the door on her.
I told her to get out.
He locked the door on her. She always could say, well, come on, puppy, and calm the dogs down, keep them biting her. If you ever want to keep Commissioner Fleming away from anything, just put a dog there. He won't come there. Any kind of dog, could be this high dog, he won't come. I have 2 Rottweilers that lick you to death and come in the yard. He won't come. He won't get out at my house. So, but anyway, I've enjoyed that, and and then to come in, and now that being the elect, I'm still hyped up and being out there on the campaign trail, and now it hadn't really set in to being the commissioner yet. Where I'm at, and but I do thank forward to Mr. Scott. He invited me. I got a letter in the mail, and he congratulated me and made me feel welcome, and then talking with him and making some things happen for me. I appreciate him, and getting the Mr. Baker and invited me to come out to his office and sitting there, and I we've been like an hour and a half with Miss Nina and Mr. Gentry there, and I wound up spending a half a day out there with him, kept him over past lunch. He said, we got through about 2 o'clock, he said, well, Mr. Perkins, I'm going to find me a biscuit. He didn't invite me to go with him, but he went and got him a biscuit. So I enjoyed that being with them, going up the budget book and going out there sharing with me. And I was going to one of my jobs in between White Spring and Jasper, building a couple houses over there, and got a call and said, get a chance to come by my office. Mr. Bat called me. I said, oh man, what I'm doing now? So then I had to run. So I said, well, I better get up first and check him out. So I got over there and then probably thought it'd take about 10 minutes. We probably stayed a couple hours there. He going through everything, laying it out for me. I said, man, well, it's good, but it's a lot to undertake, And but this is what I'm saying is I appreciate everything. Then hearing Mr. Harrison invited me to come. I haven't got there yet, but come out this office, see some things, go over and travel to sites and show them things, bring me up to date on those things. Hearing Mr. Norris said, well, come by my office. And I opened the door for you to come on in, and we'll let you know what's going on. The engineer from Lake City said, come by her office. I said, man, God, I'm pulled in many different directions. But it's all good. I do appreciate that, and I know it's undertaking this position from Mr. Fleming. I know it's going to be a lot. He got some big shoes, and I hope I can fill those shoes. Oh, you do. And I'll take that as, and I know by the grace of God I will. But I just want to say thank you to everyone. I appreciate you, all the department, the sheriff's department. I thank God for them, and Chief Hand. Thank you. Thank you for him too. He invited me to come out and be with them, and he called me up and said I got a award ceremony and be out. I think on the 27th, 4th. Saturday, yeah. You might be with him out there, and and it's been great. Him and Mr. Scott came out, one of my first rallies, and I just invited him to come out there, man. And I tell you what, them guys really did an awesome job. The community was grateful to hear from them. They laid some things out to them, and Scott told them about what the plans are for the Douglas Center. Chief Hand got there and answered, man. He jumped in, and it was he just showed up to sort of support. But wind up, he got in there, and he did an awesome job. I mean, we had a great time there. So thank you to everyone for your help and support. I appreciate you.
Thank you. There you go. Appreciate the kind words.
Yes, sir.
You can tell he
I don't get them very often, so I like them when I get them.
Can't you tell he pastors the church?
Sorry?
Can't you tell he pastors the church?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He's almost good as you are.
Hopefully he doesn't talk too much. Talk too long.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Administrator.
Well, I've got just a couple things, and I'll make it quick. One,
short and sweet.
Quick update. We're still working our zoning issue through on the property on Gold Kiss. I think I mentioned it to you before. The city's changing that to government use because that's ultimately where it needs to be. So the city manager told me today that he thinks that'll be wrapped up by the end of this year. So they're working on that. And the only other thing I'd like to say was this year, the budget workshops went well. The tentative and final budget hearings went extremely well. I was pleased with the way everything went. I'm, again, very thankful. I'll just shout out to the Keith and Nina over at the clerk's office, working hard, putting all that together, scrambling to update everything for us. They always do a magnificent job, and I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely.
And that's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pravat?
Don't want to hear some more?
No, but I'm offering.
All done.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming?
Yes, sir. I would like to thank our staff. They get very little recognition sometimes, but I'd like to thank our staff, Mandy, Chad, Shannon, and Paula, for what you do. Y'all do a great job. I just want to say this. Mandy brought me this box yesterday from FACT, from Florida Association of Counties. They sent me this big plaque thanking me for being a part of FACT. FACT is a great thing to be in, and I'm very proud of that. But what I want to say was when Mr. Harris grabbed that stack of papers, pick those papers up again, he had all those papers in his hand. There's no way that I would do this man's job. I told him about 7, 8 years ago that you need to go to bed at night, spend some time on your own, because at the end of the day, you still have your life. But he works hard, and I tell these commissioners, your best friend is this man right here. He keep you out of a crack. And if he can't do it, you got somebody in Tallahassee can sure do it. But I'm reminded of, I like quotes, I'm reminded of President Reagan, what he said in 1981. In order to keep up with today's society, it was sending people to the moon. And it was going to learn. Now this was in 1981 and he made this quote. Well, this has came and it has passed. And I was looking at the funeral of the Queen. And some of her speeches, she said that it would get worse before it get better, but it would get better. So what she was saying, it was better days ahead. There's always better days ahead, but we're going to go through these times, or these tough times, or these situations. And we work through these problems in order to get things resolved. But I can say this, and I got more to say before I leave off the board. I think we got one of the better groups of commissioners in this county, and our staff, and Keith and Nina. And I am so surprised that Mr. Hancock hadn't said anything in a while.
Don't get him started.
I'm not going to get him started tonight, because I know that there's some chicken and rice and the raffle that Commissioner Land has been talking about. But I just want to spit that out just a little bit. That's free detailed information. I want to give that out. Mr. Chairman, you can go.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Stapleton.
Real quick, I'd just like to thank everyone, so many, for the thoughts and prayers for my oldest daughter, Aubrey. She's had 2 surgeries in the past 2 weeks, and bless her heart, was in the hospital for 4 days the first time, and we went back and was back there this Sunday, and believe it or not, I was able to bring her home and make it to this meeting at 5 o'clock. And I pray that we're going to be able to keep her out of there, because it don't matter how old they are. She's 24, and when they want their daddy, you're going to be there. And I had to sleep in one of them recliner chairs with her. Get too old for that, Mr. Chairman. So
I assure you.
I'm just grateful that we got her home, and I continue to ask for prayers for her. That's all I got.
Absolutely. Thank you. Commissioner Land.
Yeah, short and sweet. I did not know about Commissioner Stapleton's daughter, so many thoughts and prayers for her and a healthy recovery. Hopefully everything will work out. God's will be done there. Commissioner Hale, I think our Seminoles are the only undefeated.
I was going to bring it up, but thank you for doing it.
Undefeated team in the state of Florida, I believe.
This side's starting to look much better down here, ain't it?
But I don't want to go too fast, so we got some FFA kids that started at 6:30, FFA dinner and a cake auction fundraiser that they're expecting me at.
Where you get all that money? He got a pocket full of money, whoever's going to bid against him.
I try to give back support.
Okay.
How much you bidding, so I know how much to run you up?
I'm going to run you up.
You better run by the bank. You better run by the bank for what I seen in his pocket. But
I'll end with that. I'll keep
Can I turn in an expense report on this?
I can answer that.
Yes, that's what it was, wasn't it?
I'll make it short too. Just continue prayers for Commissioner Staples' daughter, and again, thank you to our staff. I mean, and I don't want to forget anybody, from the road graders to the mowers to the recreation department. I mean, there's just so many departments that sometimes we don't recognize things that get done on a day-to-day basis, and those folks don't get recognized. And I just want to recognize all of them. Our employees are who make us look good, I guess, every day. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. Well, I agree with everybody else, and I'm sure I need to thank somebody that I hadn't thought about, but I'm just glad to be here. So with that, I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye.
Aye.